Wait a minute. Take two. When I first turned this thing on, I was extremely excited to see what it would look like. And it booted up. I stood back in awe. I could not believe how beautiful it was. But the quality of workmanship and the beautifully stunning displays made me a very happy camper. In the upper left-hand corner of the console, we see 8 push buttons. The first button is gain. With this button pushed, all across the console, you see all the gain settings at the bottom of each channel icon, picture, whatever you want to call it. Holding down the Alt button toggles these buttons to their second purpose. You push high pass filter, and all of your channels display the high pass filter setting at the bottom. You hit the send button, you get to see all the levels of the various channels going into the mix. Right now we have Rick selected. On the right hand side of the console is another white button. It's called a flip button. You'll notice only one of them is lit. Pushing the one that is not lit will do nothing. The one that is lit indicates that there is more information below. So right now we can look at Rick's levels, but for these 16 channels, we can see that the left key, Rick, Lacey, and Danny are turned up in his mix. If we hit the down arrow button one time, we get the next mix, and that would be Lacey's. We can see that Lacey has nobody in her mix of these 16 channels, except for her. Next mix down would be Danny. And we can see that the guitar, sax, both left and right keys, and the 3 vocals are turned up in his mix. It's just a real fast way to see what amount of level is set in each of the mixes. And we'll go to the next button, which is the pan. When you have the pan button, you guessed it, you get to see the pan settings for each channel. And that stays there until you change it. Next button down is the EQ. EQ will show you all the various settings of the equalizer. The SEL button is an abbreviation for select. This first display will always show you the channel or the mix output that you have selected. So any changes you're making, you know that you're making the changes to the correct channel or mix output. It's Mackie's way of making sure that you make as few mistakes as possible. Modern type, vintage type. We hit the next button, we get graphic EQ, but there is no graphic equalizers for the inputs. Those are only available on the outputs. Next, we hit the dynamics button. This way, we get to see the gate and the compressor. So we're still on the kick drum. We can turn the gate on and off. We can check what type of compressor we're using, vintage or modern. And then we see, of course, all the various settings. The gate is showing in blue, and then we have the compressor showing in purple. Next, we hit the effects button. Of course, as you guessed, all of the adjustments for the effects, all beautifully displayed, very visible, nice and bright, easy to see. Next up, we'll talk about snapshots and mixes.